At the turn of the 21st century, Doctor Who had become an afterthought, a niche sci-fi show your parents used to watch and basement-dwelling nerds still went nuts for. However, this all changed in 2005, with a big flashy modern revival of the long-running show. 2005 Series 1 stripped Doctor Who down to its essentials, and reimagined it for the modern TV landscape. It was essentially a reboot, dropping most of the baggage of classic Who and forging its own path ahead. And this path was pretty successful to say the least, having 2 Christmas specials and 2 following series commissioned before Series 1 was even over. However, Series 2 had to deal with 2 big changes. Not only did we have a new incarnation of the Doctor coming in, but Billie Piper's Rose was also going to be leaving the show at the end of the series. This meant that Series 2 had to carefully balance the introduction and establishment of the 10th Doctor and the departure of Rose, all whilst keeping the stories and locations fresh and imaginative. So was modern Doctor Who's sophomore series able to replicate the lightning in a bottle of its predecessor?
No.
At the end of Doctor Who Series 1, lead actor Christopher Eccleston officially left the show due to his dissatisfaction with undisclosed backstage happenings. He was replaced by up-and-coming Scottish actor David Tennant, whose love for Doctor Who helped him secure the lead role before Series 1 even began to air, meaning he would finally achieve his childhood ambition of playing the Doctor, the main reason he began acting in the first place. Tennant's portrayal of the Doctor formally began with the Christmas Invasion, which for all intents and purposes is the beginning of Series 2, since it introduces the 10th Doctor fully. Because of this big change, Series 2 would begin a trend that would continue through the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who, since every series introduced something new, pushing change to the forefront. Having a new incarnation of the Doctor and introducing a new big bad are 2 very good hooks for Series 2, because the new Doctor gets you in for the first few episodes, then you have the big tentpole Cyberman story in the middle of the series, which spikes interest back up to carry you to the finale, which introduces more change, writing out Rose. In theory, Series 2 should work just as well as Series 1, since it uses the same formula on paper, but in its execution it actually ends up paling in comparison to its predecessor. I feel like Series 2 is kind of like the opposite of the later Series 5. When you look at it, Series 5 is a good series made up of a bunch of mediocre episodes, whereas Series 2 is a weak series made up of a bunch of good episodes. Even though most of the Series 2 episodes are good, they don't feel as narratively tight as Series 1 did. There's no clear through line running throughout the series. Series 1 was all about the Doctor recovering from the Time War and growing as a person, learning to enjoy life again thanks to Rose. Every episode contributed something significant to the series, whether that be character interactions, events, or sowing seeds. It made it feel like a, well, series. With Series 2, however, that doesn't really exist. You can pretty much skip half the episodes and it won't make a difference to the overall experience. You only really need to watch Tooth and Claw, School Reunion, Girl in the Fireplace and the Cyberman 2-parter to understand the finale. It feels less concise, with the only real theme being, gee, the Doctor and Rose really like each other. It'd be a shame if anything happened to them. There's no feeling of growth or development. Even though Series 2 has a lot of incredible episodes, they just don't really work as an overall cohesive unit, and that's why I think a lot of people don't like Series 2. There's simply less of an identity to it. The episodes are less important to the wider narrative. If anything, Mickey has the most interesting storyline in Series 2. He feels more like the Series 2 companion than Rose herself, since you can't skip any of the episodes he appears in, while Rose is just kind of there throughout the series and is a shadow of her Series 1 characterization. It's no secret that a lot of people don't like Rose Tyler in Series 2. The fanbase has very much turned against her characterization during her second series on the show, and they're definitely justified to do so. In Series 1 she had a clear journey, much like the Doctor himself. However, in Series 2 there wasn't really any development for Rose. She starts and ends it pretty much the same, with only a small bit of growing independence being shown right at the end of the series. It's a shame because there was still a lot of narrative potential to explore, since the Doctor has just regenerated. However, all of the post-regeneration tension is dealt with during the Christmas invasion, and mopped up right then and there. By the time New Earth rolls around, she's already used to the 10th Doctor and accepted him. Both David Tennant and Billie Piper are great actors, and they have great chemistry as the Doctor and Rose, but there's no tension between the two. I think that's a big reason as to why people don't like the pair during Series 2, because they just get along too well, if anything. It takes until School Reunion for there to be any kind of tension between the two, and they only seem to clash maybe 2 other times in the entire series. It's simply not enough, especially because the Doctor and Rose clashed in pretty much every episode during Series 1, making their relationship interesting and easy to get invested in. There were so many opportunities to add conflict in Series 2. In New Earth, they have Cassandra inside Rose's body and mind, so they could have taken that opportunity to have Cassandra observe that Rose isn't sure about this new incarnation of the Doctor, rather than saying she fancies him. In The Girl in the Fireplace, there could have been more of an emphasis on Rose feeling abandoned by the Doctor when he seals himself in the past to be with Ronette. For Age of Steel, we could have used Rose to challenge the Doctor's plan to make all of the Cybermen realise who they are, since it's morally questionable, and those kinds of moral debates are why we have companions in the show. Lastly, in the Satan Pit, there is a brilliant part where the Beast is taunting the characters about their fears and insecurities. However, for Rose, it says she'll die in battle, foreshadowing her apparent death in the finale. Instead of this, I think it could have been used to once again bring up Rose not being sure about the 10th Doctor. Part of what makes School Reunion such a strong episode is how it creates tension between Rose and the Doctor, creating that conflict Series 2 lacks so much. You don't even have to change all that much to the series to make the conflict work. You just need to add little bits here and there, minor changes that don't completely change episodes. I do wonder if people would be more lenient on the 10th Doctor and Rose if the regeneration was handled like the 12th Doctor and Clara later down the line in Series 8, with Rose taking longer to accept the change because she was so used to the 9th Doctor. It could have provided an interesting hook to Series 2, with tension in their relationship, and having Rose come around on the Doctor near the end of the series, just to be torn apart from him in the finale. It would have made the ending feel more tragic because they would have just been starting to grow together in the second half of the series, so their separation would really feel like they're being ripped apart. Despite the Doctor and Rose's relationship being very divisive, you cannot deny that David Tennant really put a lot of effort into selling that bond. Knowing Tennant was stepping into the shoes of his childhood hero, it's hard to imagine how much pressure he felt during Series 2, but he really knocks it out of the park as the Doctor. A lot of people take issue with his more human and emotional portrayal of the character, but I think it works really well, purely because of his charisma. In every episode he oozes confidence and bounces so well off of the supporting cast, having great chemistry with everyone he shares the screen with. Thanks to his acting, you really feel his connection with Ronette and his love for Rose. I like how the 10th Doctor contrasts with the 9th Doctor, since the 10th Doctor is a lot more open with his emotions compared to the 9th Doctor, who bottled them up. The 10th Doctor in Series 2 is justifiably jovial and optimistic, because it builds upon that character journey in Series 1. He's found closure for the Time War and moved on, so it makes sense that he'd be more expressive and excitable. However, I do like that they also show the 10th Doctor's darker side, with him often falling back into the anger of his previous incarnation. It shows how he still has that darker undercurrent. He's not just some happy-go-lucky guy. The Doctor's soppy relationship with Rose can get a little bit annoying, but Tennant really impresses as the character straight away, needing no time to ease into the role. He instantly feels like the Doctor with his authoritative yet childish nature, and he has plenty of so-called Doctor moments, and speeches that cement his take on the Doctor as an all-time classic. It's no surprise he left the legacy he did. Even though the arc of the Doctor and Rose isn't realised all that well, I really like the Torchwood plotline of the series. Series 1 the year before had the running plotline of the words Bad Wolf appearing in some capacity during almost every episode, culminating in the finale which reveals that Rose scattered the words through time to make herself become the Bad Wolf entity. Given the malleability of the repeated word concept, it would have been easy to just do it again for Series 2, but I like that they went in a different direction with it. Even though it was first mentioned in Bad Wolf and looked to be going in the same direction as Series 1, the Torchwood arc is a different enough concept to still feel fresh. Right from the start in the Christmas Invasion, we're shown that Torchwood is something that has a presence in this world and means something rather than being an Easter egg with a grand reveal at the end. It's established further in Tooth and Claw, which straight up tells the viewer, hey, Torchwood is a real thing and it was created to stop aliens, including the Doctor. All of the Torchwood references in Series 2 cement it as a physical presence throughout time, not just a coincidental concept. I think I prefer the Torchwood arc to the Bad Wolf arc, because it feels more planned out and solid. At the end of Series 1, you get to the Bad Wolf reveal and you're like, wait, that's what Bad Wolf means? Okay, I guess. But with Series 2, you feel satisfied that you finally meet Torchwood, because they've been lurking all throughout. It feels like a culmination, rather than a random reveal. Torchwood is probably the best of the Russell T Davies recurring theme story arcs. Bad Wolf felt too retroactive, Mr. Saxon felt too obvious as an ongoing arc, and the Missing Planets of Series 4 was too subtle of an arc that you didn't even really notice it was meant to be important. It's also probably helped that I love the concept of Torchwood, but I really like the arc. This next bit might sound like a nitpick, but the music actually plays a big part in the quality of Series 2, and by that I don't mean the music itself. In fact, Series 2 has an incredible score by the ever-talented Murray Gold, but it's mixed into the episodes so awfully. The music is mixed in so loudly, overpowering a lot of the dialogue at times. It makes things feel a lot sloppier, devaluing the many well-written and well-scored moments, since the music is so loud and in your face. You might not think it at first, but the awful mixing has more of an impact on the viewing experience than you may think. In fact, it was so disruptive that it was even mocked in a sketch show on the BBC.
I'm not talking about the Cybermen, Rose. I'm talking about the ridiculously loud music in the second series, which keeps on getting louder and louder and drowning everything else out.
It's a huge shame that the music is mixed this way, because I think Series 2 has a really strong soundtrack. There are fantastic tracks like the Cyberman and Doomsday, along with the Torchwood leitmotif and the great score of the Impossible Planet Satan Pit two-parter. Music-wise, I think it's a good expansion of the Series 1 score, keeping a similar style but transitioning into the more orchestral sound Murray Gold would become known for. I'd say it has more standout tracks than Series 1, but that's not to say the Series 1 score was bad, since it was also incredible. Even though the music of Series 2 is mixed badly and overpowers a lot of moments, I would say the music of the series is a net positive, since the quality of the tracks outweighs the bad mixing when they're actually used in the episodes. The monsters of Series 2 are an interesting bunch. They're a lot more dependent on being familiar with the show, since Cassandra and the Daleks return from Series 1, and the Cybermen are a reimagining of the already existing Cybermen. The original monsters and villains from Series 2 are very mixed and limited as one-offs, such as the artificial humans of New Earth, along with the Wire in the Idiot's Lantern and the Isolus in Fear Her. These three monsters are also just portrayed as humans. They're not especially imaginative. It feels like the monster budget was lower for Series 2, because the Krillitane look like worse versions of the Reapers from Father's Day, and the Absorbaloth is, well, the Absorbaloth. That being said, the modern Cybermen, Clockwork Droids and the Ood all look incredible. I really like how they all look, but the rest of the monsters of Series 2 just seem a lot less creative and well realised than their Series 1 counterparts. Instead of gaseous alien refugees, we get werewolf. It means the series feels less distinctive as a result, because the villains are less visually impressive or imaginative, but I do like the way the Cybermen are set up in this series. The two-parter halfway through the series rebuilds them as a credible threat after the monster had become a bit of a joke during Classic Who, meaning the mid-series two-parter is an effective replication of Dalek in Series 1. However, unlike Series 1, the Cybermen are kind of misused in the Series 2 finale. They're built up to be the main threat in Army of Ghosts, and they feel like a big deal, but then they become a bit of an afterthought in Doomsday because they're overshadowed by the Daleks. It's a huge shame and a bit of a misstep, because the Cybermen have a lot more narrative potential than the Daleks, but they yet again play second fiddle, rather than being successfully rebuilt as a threat on the same level.
You would destroy the Cybermen with 4 Daleks. We would destroy the Cybermen with 1 Dalek.
One benefit I think Series 2 has is that Series 3 was already commissioned before Series 2 even started production, so they had a bit of a safety net and could experiment a bit, taking more risks and embracing Doctor Who's past more clearly. School Reunion was a possibly disastrous concept since it was all about reintroducing a character a lot of the viewers had no connection to or even knew about, but they took the risk and it more than paid off, since it did a great job of establishing Sarah Jane for a new audience. Similarly, the safety net of Series 3 and the filming schedule of Series 2 and a Christmas special forced the production team to create the now infamous Love and Monsters, which barely features the Doctor and Rose, instead opting to explore the world of Doctor Who through the eyes of Elton Pope. The quintessential everyman is a very bold direction for the show to take, and I think it's a phenomenal episode because it gives us that new perspective on this world and experiments with the very format of Doctor Who itself, providing a meta commentary on fans of the show and how we experience the show. Regardless of what you think about the quality of the episode, you have to respect what it tried to do, because it's so creative with its premise and execution. An episode like that simply wouldn't have been possible with Series 1, which couldn't afford to take these kinds of risks. Series 2 is a very divisive series in the Russell T Davies era, which means it's a very interesting series to take a look at. It sticks with the same basic formula as Series 1, but it shakes it up a little bit by actually going to alien planets now, and experimenting more with the way episodes are structured. However, one thing it should have kept from Series 1 is that tension between the Doctor and Rose. Instead of their relationship being all rosy and happy-go-lucky, it makes it harder to buy into their character dynamic, because that lack of tension makes it harder to get invested in them. It's the main problem with the series, because it means good episodes like The Girl in the Fireplace don't fit into the larger series as a whole. The finale is a brilliantly crafted story with a great sense of finality, pitting Daleks against the Cybermen for the first time and feeling like a cinematic, action-packed climax. But it doesn't work as well as The Parting of the Ways because of the episodes that came before it, which shows the issues with the series itself. It ends up feeling like a bunch of solid episodes scattered around into a series, rather than a concise package like Series 1, which set a precedent of tight episodic narratives that have lasting effects, coming into play at the end of the series. For that reason, Series 2 as a series gets a low B on the overall New Who tier list. The episodes themselves are more good than bad, making the series a B, but they just don't fit together as a series, which detracts from them and pushes the series down a little bit. If it wasn't for the quality of the individual episodes and the Torchwood arc, the series would be a lot lower on the tier list. It's by far the weakest series of the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who, but it's still good. I really think your opinion on the series is shaped by what you think about the relationship between the Doctor and Rose. If you hate their relationship, you'll like this series a lot less, because of how much of a spotlight it gets given. I don't think anything they did for Series 2 would match up to Series 1, but they really gave it a good go and it turned out pretty well. The directing of the episodes is great, with 5 different directors each lending their own styles to the episodes of the series. As I mentioned previously, the music by Murray Gold is brilliant, and so is the acting. Not just by David Tennant and Billie Piper, but most of the supporting cast and one-offs too. Noel Clarke gets to portray a much more mature and nuanced version of Mickey Smith, significantly improving the character because of the focus on Mickey throughout. Jackie is also given more of a focus thanks to Love and Monsters, which humanises her quite a lot and makes you warm to her. The pair are a severely underrated part of Series 1 and 2, and I think they make a lot of their Series 2 episodes better by just being there. Another good thing Series 2 does is the additional material shot, with the Born Again minisode and TARDISodes being simple little shorts that end up adding some nice further context to episodes, and feeling like a nice bit of extra material for fans to discover and enjoy. I will admit I have a bit of a soft spot for Series 2, and it's probably because of nostalgia. It was clearly a success at the time, especially with casual fans, since in 2006 David Tennant was voted as the best Doctor, which is astonishing since he'd only played the Doctor for one series. However, even with Tennant's incredible performance in Series 2, the series is nowhere near as good as what came before or what came after it. And speaking of, it's finally time to get back to the great stuff. And I'd like to give a special thank you to my gold level patrons, Steph McNever Miller and Mark Hip Old Guy Taylor. Thank you a lot for your support.